Professionals laughed at the old-fashioned elderly woman, but regretted it in seconds. Mrs. Margaret Johnson felt her heart tighten as she pushed the glass door of the veterinary clinic. Her calloused hands held a bucket of still warm milk and a worn leather pouch, while the scarf tied around her head protected her grey hair from the strong Omaha sun. The three young recent graduates working there exchanged amused glances as soon as they saw her enter. The 78-year-old woman had barely finished explaining that her cow Daisy was sick when she heard muffled giggles coming from the reception desk. Brittany, the youngest of the veterinarians, even discreetly took a photo with her cell phone, whispering something about Stone Age methods to her colleagues Ashley and Jennifer. "Doctor, I know you must think it's nonsense, but Daisy hasn't been eating properly for 3 days," said Margaret, carefully placing the bucket on the counter. "She keeps staring at the horizon, you know, as if she's waiting for someone." Brittany could barely contain her laughter. "You think cows have feelings?" she asked in a mocking tone, making the other two chuckle softly. Margaret's face flushed slightly, but she maintained her dignity. "I know it might seem foolish, but I raised this cow since she was a calf. I know every quirk of hers, every sigh. Something is wrong, and it's not just physical." "Okay, Grandma," said Ashley, interrupting impatiently. "Do you want a veterinary exam or a session with a cattle psychologist?" The three burst into laughter. Jennifer, the oldest of the trio at 26, picked up her phone and started typing a message to the college group on iMessage. Margaret took a deep breath. She knew that kind of contempt. She had faced it her whole life for being a simple country woman, born at a time when girls like her didn't have the right to an education. But something about those laughs hurt her differently. "Are you going to examine my cow or not?" she asked, her voice firm despite the humiliation. Of course," said Brittany, still laughing. "But it'll have to be private. Tests cost $200, plus the $150 house call. Do you take cards?" Margaret opened the leather pouch and counted the crumpled bills. $250. It was all she had saved from the month's milk sales. "All right," she sighed. "But I want you to come today. Daisy needs urgent care." Brittany rolled her eyes. "Can't do today, Grandma. We have important cases in the morning. How about next Thursday?" "Thursday?" Margaret's eyes widened. "But that's 5 days." "Look, do you want professional care or do you want folk healing?" retorted Ashley. "Because if it's folk healing, you can go see the neighbor who does blessings." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Tears began to form in Margaret's eyes, but she swallowed them. She had cried too much in her life to waste tears on people who didn't deserve them. "Never mind," she murmured, picking up the bucket again. "I'll take care of her my own way." "Wait!" shouted Jennifer, suddenly interested. "What about this money? Since you came all the way here." Margaret stopped at the door, turned slowly, and stared at the three young women. "Keep your money. I'll find someone who understands that a sick animal can't wait 5 days." "Oh, the drama," said Brittany, shaking her head. "Typical of old folks. Can't handle modern life." Margaret put the bucket down and walked over to Brittany's desk. Calmly, she took an envelope from her pouch and placed it next to the computer. "What's that?" asked Ashley, curious. "A gift," replied Margaret, picking up the bucket again. "For you to understand that not everything in life is as it seems." And she left the clinic without looking back, leaving the three young veterinarians puzzled by the mysterious envelope. Jennifer was the first to pick up the paper. It was an invitation, printed on Cornell University letterhead. Lecture, Integrative Veterinary Medicine, Traditional Wisdom in Animal Care, she read aloud. Speaker, Dr. Margaret Johnson, Professor Emerita of Veterinary Medicine. Silence fell over the clinic. Brittany took the invitation from Jennifer's hands and reread it several times. "It can't be the same person," she stammered. "Margaret Johnson," murmured Ashley, opening Google on the computer. "Oh my, look at this." The screen showed dozens of scientific articles, international awards, and photos of a younger woman receiving academic honors. It was her. It was the same woman they had just humiliated. Was she our professor in college? Asked Brittany, her voice trembling. No, you idiot, said Jennifer, reading the articles. She retired before we started the course. But look here. Pioneer in bovine behavior studies in the United States. Developed revolutionary diagnostic techniques through behavioral observation. Ashley was pale. Oh my, did you see when she said the cow was looking at the horizon? And we laughed. Shut up, shouted Brittany, nervous. She could have told us who she was. Why would she do that? Jennifer shot back. After how we treated her. The clinic phone started ringing. Ashley answered with a tense voice. Pet Health Clinic, good afternoon. What? No, sir. We don't have any appointments available today. I understand. Look for the country doctor? What doctor? She hung up the phone and looked at her colleagues. It was old Joe from Sunrise Ranch. He said he was cancelling tomorrow's appointment because he was going to look for the country doctor who treats animals for free on her property. Brittany felt her stomach turn. No, she wouldn't do that. The phone rang again. And again. Within half an hour, 5 farmers called cancelling appointments and mentioning the same country doctor. Jennifer took the car and drove to the Johnson family property, following the coordinates she found in the rural registry. What she saw left her even more confused. It was a simple wooden house with a well-kept garden and a small corral in the back. Nothing that indicated the presence of one of the most respected veterinarians in the country. But then she saw the cow. It was Daisy, the cow Margaret had spoken about, and she really wasn't well. She stood still in a corner of the pasture, staring intently at the road, as if waiting for someone. "Can I help you?" asked a voice behind her. Jennifer turned and saw Margaret, now wearing simple jeans and a cotton blouse, but with the same dignity as always. I came to apologize," stammered Jennifer. "We didn't know who you were." Margaret smiled sadly. "And if you had known, would you have treated me differently? Is a person's knowledge worth more when they have titles on the wall?" Jennifer didn't know what to answer. The question struck her to the core. "Are you really a veterinarian?" "I was, for 50 years, until they told me I was too old to understand the new methods." Margaret walked to the fence where Daisy was grazing. "Mandatory retirement," they said, at 70 years old, when I still had so much to offer. "But you kept practicing." "Not officially. I help neighbors who can't afford expensive appointments, and I study. I always study." She pointed to the cow. "Daisy lost her companion a week ago. Frank, my husband, always talked to her while milking her. She's grieving." Jennifer watched the cow with new eyes. There really was something melancholic about the animal's posture. "How do you treat that?" "With patience and kindness. I let her process the pain. I bring other cows to keep her company. A change of environment sometimes helps." Margaret looked directly at Jennifer. "You would have done expensive tests and prescribed unnecessary antibiotics because you never learned to see." "You're right, ma'am. We were wrong." "You were wrong because you thought age and appearance defined competence. You were wrong because you dismissed knowledge you didn't recognize." Margaret's voice was serene, but carried years of pain. "How many people like me have you looked down on?" Jennifer felt tears in her eyes. "How can you ever forgive us?" "Who said I already have?" Margaret gave a half smile. "Forgiveness is earned, child, not won with pretty words." That night, Jennifer returned to the clinic and told everything to Brittany and Ashley. The discussion that followed revealed dark aspects none of them wanted to admit. "I've always done this," confessed Ashley, crying. "Since college, I judge people by their appearance. I think I know more than everyone just because I have a degree. And I do worse," admitted Brittany. "I take pictures of people to make fun of later, as if life were a joke and I were better than everyone." Jennifer shook her head. "We are the problem. We are exactly the kind of professional that kills veterinary medicine. Arrogant, prejudiced, only interested in money." "But what do we do now?" asked Ashley. "We'll go there tomorrow, all of us, and we'll ask her to teach us how to be real veterinarians." The next morning, the 3 arrived at Margaret's property carrying flowers and a basket of fruit. They found the elderly woman in the yard, caring for 3 injured dogs. "I didn't think you'd come back," she said without looking up from the animals. "We want to learn," said Brittany, her voice humble. "We want you to teach us." Margaret finally looked at them. "Why would I do that, after how you treated me?" "Because you're better than us," replied Jennifer. "And because these animals deserve better veterinarians than we are today." Margaret was silent for a long moment, stroking one of the dogs. "I had a granddaughter," she said finally. "She dreamed of being a veterinarian. She was brilliant, dedicated. But when she went to do an internship at a clinic in New York City, they treated her just like you treated me. They said she was too much of a country bumpkin, too old-fashioned. She gave up on her dream and went to work in a store." The three young women lowered their heads, ashamed. "That's why you hurt me so much," Margaret continued. "Because I saw my granddaughter in you. Young people with opportunities she never had. And you wasting it all out of arrogance." "Where is she now?" asked Ashley. "In New York City. She works at a mall. She's 28 and still talks about veterinary medicine as a lost dream." Brittany stepped closer. What if we brought her back? What if we gave her a chance to start over?" Margaret looked up, surprised. "She would never accept. She's too hurt." "Then we'll go to her," said Jennifer. "We'll apologize on behalf of the entire profession. And we'll show her that not all veterinarians are the same." During the following week, something extraordinary happened. The three young women closed the clinic and went to New York City to look for Amanda, Margaret's granddaughter. They found a sad woman working in a clothing store, dreaming every night of animals she could no longer heal. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like, and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The conversation with Amanda was difficult. She didn't even want to hear about veterinary medicine. But when Brittany told her how they met Margaret, something changed in her eyes. "You laughed at my grandmother?" she asked, her voice full of emotion. "Yes," admitted Jennifer, ashamed, "and she taught us a lesson we'll never forget." "My grandmother is the wisest person I know," said Amanda, tears in her eyes, "and you treated her like she was ignorant." "That's why we're here," said Ashley, "to try to fix what we broke. Not just with her, but with you too." Amanda stayed silent for a long time. "Do you know why I gave up?" she finally asked. "Because in a single day, 8 different professionals told me I wasn't cut out to be a veterinarian, that a country girl didn't understand modern medicine, that I should go back to milking cows." The three young women exchanged glances, recognizing their own prejudice in the words Amanda repeated. "And do you know what hurt the most?" Amanda continued. "It was that part of me believed it. I thought they were right, that I was just a hick trying to be something I couldn't be." Brittany stood up and stood before Amanda. "You could be the best veterinarian I've ever seen," she said, her voice firm, "if you accept giving us a chance to prove it." "How so?" "Come back with us. Work with us. Let your grandmother teach you everything she knows, and teach us too. Because you have something we lost along the way. Humility." Amanda looked through the shop window, watching the crowd hurry through the streets of New York City. "What if I'm not good enough?" "Then we'll learn together," said Jennifer. "Your grandmother already agreed to teach us, but she set one condition. She'll only teach if you're with us." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "She really said that?" "She said veterinary medicine lost a lot when you gave up, and that it's time to correct that mistake." A week later, Amanda was back in Omaha, wearing a borrowed lab coat and watching her grandmother examine an injured cat. The three young veterinarians watched in silence, learning more in 2 hours than in years of college. "Look at the ears," said Margaret, gently stroking the animal. "He's not in physical pain. He's scared, probably abandoned recently." "How do you know?" asked Amanda. "The way he looks at the door. He's waiting for someone to come back for him. It's different from a cat born on the streets." Margaret smiled at her granddaughter. "You were always good at reading animals, Amanda, since you were little. But I don't understand modern medicines, tests." "Medicines and tests are tools," interrupted her grandmother. "Useful, but just tools. What really heals is understanding what the animal needs, and you always knew how to do that." Brittany, who was watching everything, felt humiliated and inspired at the same time. humiliated for realizing how superficial her knowledge was, inspired by seeing she could still learn. "Mrs. Margaret," she said timidly, "could you teach us that?" The elderly woman looked at her with a smile mixing kindness and irony. "Are you sure you want to learn from an old-fashioned old lady?" The four young women lowered their heads, ashamed. "We deserve that," murmured Ashley, "and we really want to learn." "Then let's start with the basics," said Margaret, standing up. "First, you'll learn to look, really look, not in a hurry, not lazily. You'll learn to see what the animals are trying to tell you." During the following days, the old property turned into an improvised school. Margaret taught not just techniques but philosophy, how to understand that each animal was an individual, how to respect traditional knowledge without dismissing modern advances, how to be humble before the mystery of life. Amanda proved to be an exceptional student. Her hands, which had been trained to fold clothes, rediscovered the sensitivity to examine animals. Her intuition, which had been scorned by the professionals in New York City, flourished under her grandmother's loving guidance. But the real transformation happened with the three graduated veterinarians. Brittany stopped taking pictures to mock. Ashley started truly listening to what clients said. Jennifer discovered that medicine was about compassion, not superiority. One morning, an urgent case tested everything they had learned. Old Joe brought a mare in complicated labor. The animal had been suffering for hours, and the foal couldn't be born. "Let's do a C-section," said Brittany, grabbing the instruments. "Wait," said Margaret calmly. "Let's observe first." "But the mare is suffering." "She is. But sometimes nature just needs a little nudge, not surgery." Margaret approached the animal and began speaking softly, stroking the mare's neck. "Amanda, come here. Put your hand on her belly and tell me what you feel." Amanda hesitated, but obeyed. She closed her eyes and concentrated. "The foal is in the wrong position," she said after a few minutes. "It's not facing downward." "Exactly. And what do we do?" "We try to turn it manually." "That's right, but carefully. Brittany, prepare the instruments in case we need to intervene. Ashley, monitor the vital signs. Jennifer, help Amanda." What followed was a perfect demonstration of integrative veterinary medicine, technical knowledge combined with intuition and experience. Amanda, guided by her grandmother, managed to reposition the foal. Minutes later, a healthy foal was born naturally. Old Joe cried with emotion, "Dr. Margaret, as always, you saved my animals." "It wasn't me," said the elderly woman, smiling. "It was teamwork. Each of these girls contributed to this result." That night, the 5 women sat in the backyard of the house, drinking coffee and talking about the day. It was the first time the 3 veterinarians felt truly useful in their profession. "Margaret," said Brittany, using the elderly woman's name for the first time, "why did you forgive us?" The retired veterinarian was silent for a moment, looking at the stars. "Because holding a grudge only hurts the one who holds it," she finally said, "and because you gave me something I thought I had lost forever." "What?" "Hope. Hope that my granddaughter would smile again. Hope that I can still teach. Hope that veterinary medicine can be better than it is today." Amanda approached her grandmother and held her hand. "Grandma, I want to go back to studying. I want to really graduate this time." "And we will help," said Jennifer. "We'll study together. Create a new way of practicing veterinary medicine. A way that combines technical knowledge with traditional wisdom," added Ashley. Margaret smiled, and for the first time in a long time, it was a completely happy smile. "Then let's turn your clinic into a school," she said. "Let's teach other young veterinarians to see animals as living beings, not as clinical cases." Brittany hesitated. "But the clinic owners will never accept that." "Who are the owners?" "A group of investors from New York City. They only care about profit." Margaret laughed. "Dear, you're talking to someone who faced decades of prejudice in academia. Investors don't scare me." The next day, a meeting was scheduled with the clinic's partners. Margaret arrived wearing her best dress, accompanied by the 4 young women. The 3 men in suits who greeted them clearly weren't expecting that entourage. "Gentlemen," Margaret began, her voice firm, "I'm here to propose a partnership." The main partner, Dr. Richard Thompson, laughed disdainfully. "Ma'am, this is a business meeting. If you have a sick animal—" "My name is Dr. Margaret Johnson," she interrupted, placing a resume on the table, "and I'm here to save your investment, Doctor." Thompson picked up the resume, and his expression completely changed as he read. "It can't be—" "It certainly can, and I'm here because this clinic is about to go bankrupt." "What do you mean?" Margaret pulled out a folder with documents. "In the last 15 days, you've lost 40% of your rural clients. They've all migrated to the free service I'm offering. In 6 months, you'll close your doors." Silence fell over the room. "Unless," Margaret continued, "you accept my proposal." "What proposal?" "To transform this clinic into the first center for integrative veterinary medicine in upstate New York. I'll come on as technical director, without salary. Amanda will join you as a junior veterinarian, and these 3 girls will become the first certified specialists in our methodology." Dr. Thompson exchanged looks with the other partners. "And what would our profit be?" "Triple the current amount in 2 years. The demand for compassionate veterinary medicine is growing 300% a year in the country. You can either lead the way or get run over by the competition." The negotiation lasted 3 hours. Margaret demonstrated market knowledge that impressed even the most experienced businessman. When they left the meeting, they had an agreement. The clinic's transformation began immediately. Margaret designed a project that blended modern facilities with compassionate spaces. A place where animals and owners felt welcomed, not just processed. Amanda enrolled in a refresher course in veterinary medicine, but now with the confidence of someone who knew she belonged there. The 3 colleagues studied with renewed interest, rediscovering their passion for the profession. But the real change was emotional. Brittany stopped feeling superior to others. Ashley learned to listen before judging. Jennifer discovered that medicine was about serving, not being served. 3 months later, the new clinic was inaugurated. The event brought together ranchers, small breeders, fellow veterinarians, and curious onlookers. Margaret, wearing a lab coat with her name embroidered on it, cut the ribbon along with Amanda and the 3 young women. "This place," she said into the microphone, "is not just a clinic. It's proof that it's never too late to start over. That true knowledge has no age. That veterinary medicine is about love, not ego." The audience applauded, moved. Old Joe, in the back, wiped away a tear. "And it's proof," Margaret continued, looking directly at the 4 young women, "that when we make mistakes, we can always choose to be better." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The first months of the new center were challenging. Not all the veterinarians in the region took the competition well. Some spread rumors that Margaret was old-fashioned and that her techniques were pseudoscience. Dr. Robert Williams, a veterinarian established in town for 20 years, was the most vocal critic. At a regional board meeting, he publicly questioned Margaret's competence. "Gentlemen colleagues," he said with disdain, "we cannot allow charlatans to devalue our profession. This so-called country doctor is mixing superstition with medicine." Margaret, who was present at the meeting, asked to speak. "Dr. Robert," she said calmly, "I would like to issue a public challenge. A case that you couldn't solve, I will solve. If I fail, we close the center. If I succeed, you admit publicly that you were wrong." The veterinarian laughed scornfully. "I accept. I have a perfect case, a racehorse with lameness that 3 specialists from New York City have already examined. No one could figure out the cause. When can I examine him?" "Right now, if you want." The entire entourage went to the town racetrack. The horse, a thoroughbred named Thunder, was visibly limping on his right hind leg. The tests showed perfect muscles, bones, and joints. Margaret approached the animal slowly, speaking softly. Amanda and the 3 veterinarians watched intently. Dr. Robert crossed his arms, convinced he was about to witness his rival's failure. "May I have a few minutes alone with the horse?" asked Margaret. "To do what?" Robert mocked. "Talk to him?" "Exactly that." Margaret was alone with Thunder for 10 minutes. When she returned, she had a serene expression on her face. "Dr. Robert, when was this horse's last race?" 3 months ago. Why? And where did he finish?" "In last place. It was humiliating. But that has nothing to do with the lameness. Margaret smiled. It has everything to do with it. This horse isn't physically injured. He's psychologically traumatized. He associates running with failure and emotional pain. The lameness is psychosomatic. Dr. Robert burst out laughing. Now I've heard everything. A horse with depression. Exactly. And the treatment is simple. Take him off the tracks for 6 months. Let him run free in the pasture without any pressure. When he rediscovers the joy of running, the lameness will disappear. That's ridiculous. Then let's do this, proposed Margaret. If in 6 months this horse is running normally without any medication, you admit you were wrong. If he isn't, I'll close the center. The horse's owner, who had been watching everything in silence, intervened. Doctor, I accept your proposal. I've already spent a fortune on tests and medicine. 6 months of rest won't cost anything. The bet became news in town. Margaret was ridiculed by some, but defended by others. The 4 young veterinarians lived through 6 months of anxiety, studying intensively so as not to disappoint their mentor. During that period, the center grew organically. Margaret implemented rural outreach programs, offering free care for small farmers. Amanda excelled in treating traumatized animals. Brittany discovered a calling for delicate surgery. Ashley specialized in preventive medicine. Jennifer became an expert in animal behavior. The 6th month arrived with the whole town awaiting the result. Thunder was taken to the racetrack for a test. The animal, who had spent months running free and happy in the pasture, seemed like a completely different horse. When he was released onto the track, he ran with a joy and power he hadn't shown in years, without any sign of lameness. The crowd present erupted in applause. Dr. Robert, ashamed, approached Margaret. Doctor, I was wrong. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize to me, said Margaret generously. You need to apologize to the animals you treated without understanding what they truly needed. That public victory solidified the center's reputation. Veterinarians from all over the country began seeking out Margaret to learn her techniques. The elderly woman who had been ridiculed became a national reference. But success brought new challenges. Purchase offers arrived weekly. Major labs wanted to hire Margaret as a consultant. Universities offered chairs with astronomical salaries. One night, gathered in the backyard of Margaret's house, the 5 of them discussed the future. Grandma, said Amanda, you could make millions accepting those offers. And leave you? Leave the animals here? Leave our mission half finished? But think of the impact you could have teaching at universities, argued Brittany. Margaret shook her head. The impact I want to have is right here, in this room, in you 4, in every animal we save, in every farmer who learns to respect their animals. But what if something happens to you? Asked Ashley, worried. You're already 79 years old. That's why I need to speed up your learning, said Margaret with a smile. You are my legacy. More important than any prize or recognition. Jennifer approached her mentor. Margaret, can I ask a personal question? Of course. Why did you never remarry after your husband died? The elderly woman was silent for a moment, stroking Daisy, who was grazing near the backyard. Because I found the love of my life in veterinary medicine, and I found in you the family God gave me. I don't need anything else. The 4 young women were moved by the response. Margaret had lost so much in life. Her husband, forced retirement, years of disrespect, but chose to turn her pain into purpose. Besides, she continued with a mischievous smile, I'm too old to put up with a man's nonsense. Everyone laughed and the tension of the moment dissolved. The following year, the Center for Integrative Veterinary Medicine became the country's first specialization program in the field. Margaret developed a curriculum that combined rigorous science with human sensitivity. The classes were in high demand by veterinarians from all over the United States. Amanda graduated again, this time with highest honors and a radiating self-confidence. Brittany, Ashley, and Jennifer became the first certified instructors of Margaret's method. The center ran like a well-oiled machine of knowledge and compassion, but it was on a June morning that the most memorable moment in the group's journey occurred. A bus stopped in front of the center, and 30 retired veterinarians, all over 65, stepped off. Dr. Margaret, said the group's leader, a 72-year-old woman. "We've come from all over the country to meet you. We are veterinarians who were forced into retirement. We want to learn how to be useful again." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. There stood dozens of experienced professionals, cast aside by society because of their age, yet still full of love for animals. "You are all welcome," she said, hugging each one. "Here, you are not retired, you are teachers." What followed was the creation of the country's first professional reintegration program for senior veterinarians. Margaret organized a system where the most experienced taught traditional techniques to the younger ones while learning new technologies. Dr. Robert, who had become an ally after the Thunder incident, helped secure official support from the regional board. The program was recognized as a public interest initiative. Amanda took on academic coordination, surprising everyone with her administrative skills. Brittany created surgical protocols that combined modern techniques with traditional care. Ashley developed preventive medicine campaigns that drastically reduced the incidence of diseases in the region. Jennifer wrote the first U.S. Manual on Animal Behavior applied to veterinary practice. The success brought attention from the national media. Journalists came from New York City and other major cities to cover the story of the veterinary revolution from the heartland. Margaret always insisted that the young women give the interviews, staying behind the scenes. "Grandma," Amanda complained after a television interview, "you are the star of this story. Why don't you appear?" "Because it's not about me," Margaret replied. "It's about you. The future of veterinary medicine is in your hands, not mine." 1 year after the creation of the program for seniors, the center received the most special visit in its history. The Secretary of Agriculture came in person to learn about the initiative and offered to turn it into a national policy. "Dr. Margaret," said the Secretary, "we want to bring your model to the entire country. Will you accept being an official consultant for the department?" Margaret smiled. "Mr. Secretary, I accept, but on one condition." "What is it?" "The program will be coordinated by my 4 successors. They know the methodology better than I do, and they are the ones with the energy to travel across the entire country." "But don't you want to participate?" "Of course I do. But from where I've always belonged, here taking care of the animals in my community, I leave the expansion to those with younger legs." Amanda, Brittany, Ashley and Jennifer exchanged glances, deeply moved. Margaret was officially passing the torch to them. "Grandma," Amanda said, "are you sure?" "I am, dear. You are ready. In fact, you've been ready for a long time. You just needed to believe in yourselves." The signing ceremony for the agreement with the department took place at the center itself, attended by officials, journalists, and the entire local community. Margaret, proudly wearing her lab coat, watched the 4 young women sign the document that would bring her methodology to the entire United States. Old Joe, sitting in the front row, couldn't hold back his tears. "Doctor," he said loudly so everyone could hear, "you've transformed all our lives. You taught us that age isn't a flaw, that experience has value, that wisdom isn't learned from books." The audience gave a standing ovation. Margaret moved, stood up to speak. "I didn't transform anything," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion. "I only showed that respect is the best medicine. Respect for animals, for elders, for those who are different. These 4 women learned that better than I did. They are the future." When the ceremony ended and the officials left, the 5 women sat in the backyard as they did every evening. Daisy grazed peacefully, surrounded by other animals that had found refuge in that special place. "Margaret," said Brittany, "there's something we never asked you. What is it? Do you regret forgiving us, after how we treated you that first day?" Margaret looked each of them in the eye. "My dear, that was the best day of my life." "How so?" "Because that was the day I discovered my mission wasn't over, that I could still teach, that I could still make a difference." She smiled. "You gave me back my reason for living." Amanda approached her grandmother. "And you gave us something we didn't even know we needed." "What?" "Purpose. Before I met you, I folded clothes and dreamed of a life I thought I could never have." The 3 of them mistreated patients because they thought they were better than everyone else. "You taught us that veterinary medicine is about service, not ego," Ashley added, "and you taught us It's never too late to start over. If you managed it at 78, imagine what we can do with our whole lives ahead of us. Jennifer took her mentor's hand. Thank you for not giving up on us, for seeing potential where there was only arrogance. Brittany, who had been the cruelest during the first meeting, was the last to speak. Margaret, I'm sorry for taking that photo to make fun of you. I'm sorry for being disrespectful. I'm sorry for almost missing the chance to meet the most amazing person I've ever known. Don't apologize anymore, Margaret said firmly. That mistake of yours was necessary. If you had treated me well from the start, maybe you never would have truly learned the lesson. Sometimes God uses our worst moments to show us who we can be. That evening they stayed up late talking about plans to expand the national program. Margaret contributed suggestions, but made it clear that the execution was the responsibility of the younger women. Grandma, said Amanda before saying goodbye, promise you'll take care of your health. We don't want to lose you now that we've found our way. Margaret laughed. My dear, I've lived 79 full years. Every day is a gift. But I promise to take care of myself. After all, I still have much to teach your grandchildren's grandchildren. In the following months, Amanda, Brittany, Ashley, and Jennifer traveled throughout the United States implementing centers for integrative veterinary medicine. Margaret's model was adapted for different regions, always respecting local knowledge and valuing experienced professionals. Margaret monitored the progress from afar, full of pride. She received weekly reports and gave suggestions via video conference, but maintained her routine of caring for the local animals. It was during one of these video conferences that she shared the news everyone feared. Girls, she said naturally, I went to the doctor last week. I have a heart problem that might give me a few months or a few years. We don't know. The 4 young women were in shock. What do you mean? Amanda exclaimed. Are you feeling unwell, ma'am? No, dear. I feel fine, but it's good to be prepared. That's why I want to speed up some projects. What projects? Brittany asked. I want to write a book with everything I've learned, and I want to create a foundation to ensure our work continues even when I'm no longer here. Jennifer began to cry. Grandma, don't talk like that. You're going to live a long time yet. I may live, yes, but I may not, and we need to be prepared for both possibilities. Over the next 3 months, Margaret worked tirelessly on writing her memoirs and techniques. Amanda returned to help, and together they created a book that would become the Bible of integrative veterinary medicine in the United States. The other 3 continued the expansion work, but now with renewed urgency. They wanted to ensure Margaret's legacy would be preserved and expanded. The book, Veterinary of the Heart, 50 Years Caring for Those Who Cannot Speak, was launched simultaneously across the country. The book signings were packed, but Margaret always shared the stage with her 4 successors. This book isn't mine, she said at every event. It belongs to all veterinarians who believe that medicine is about love, not profit. It belongs to all the animals who taught me patience. It belongs to these 4 women who gave me back my hope. The book became a national and international bestseller. Universities worldwide began requesting lectures and consultations. Margaret accepted some, always accompanied by Amanda and her colleagues. It was during a lecture at Cornell University that the most moving moment of Margaret's career happened. In the packed auditorium, a young student raised her hand. Doctor, she said timidly, my grandmother always told me I could never be a veterinarian because I'm a maid's daughter. Do you think she's right? Margaret stepped down from the stage and walked over to the girl. Dear, what's your name? Jasmine. Jasmine, my mother was also a maid, and my father was a farmhand. Do you know what that taught me? That honest work is honest work, no matter what it is, and that anyone who loves animals can be a veterinarian, no matter where they come from. The audience erupted in applause. Margaret continued, Do you want to know the secret to being a good veterinarian? It's not having money, it's not having a famous last name, it's not having doctor parents. It's having a heart big enough to hold the pain of animals, and anyone can have that. After the lecture, Jasmine approached with tears in her eyes. Doctor, thank you. You've changed my life. I haven't changed anything, dear. I just confirmed what you already knew in your heart. Now go study and become the veterinarian that animals need. Back in Omaha, Margaret was more reflective. The travels were tiring her more than before, and she felt time was precious. "Amanda," she said one morning, "I want to create one last thing before I rest." "What, Grandma?" "A sanctuary. A place for animals that nobody else wants. Old, sick, traumatized ones. I want them to have a dignified place to live their final days." Amanda smiled. "I'm already taking care of it." The girls agreed to fund half the costs with the book's royalty money. "And the other half?" "I'll sell my apartment in New York City. I don't need it anymore. My place is here, with you." Margaret hugged her granddaughter tightly. "Dear, are you sure? That's so many years of work thrown away." "Not thrown away, Grandma. Invested in the right place." Finally. The sanctuary was built in 6 months on a 10-acre area attached to the center. It soon housed dozens of animals that had been abandoned for being unproductive: old horses, cows that no longer gave milk, street dogs. Margaret spent her mornings personally caring for each animal. It was a touching sight. The most respected veterinarian in the country sharing affection among animals that society had discarded. "Why did you do this, Grandma?" Amanda asked one day. "Because I see myself in them," Margaret replied simply. "Society discarded me at 70, remember? Said I was too old to be useful. These animals go through the same thing. But you proved them wrong." "Exactly. And they will too. The old can be wise, the sick can be loving. The traumatized can trust again, they just need a chance." The sanctuary became a national attraction. Families came from far away to meet the rescued animals and learn about compassionate care. Margaret created an educational program where children learned about respecting the elderly through interacting with older animals. 1 year after the sanctuary opened, Margaret received the call that would change her life once again. "Doctor," said the voice on the other end of the line, "this is the Nobel Prize Committee. You have been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for your work in humane veterinary medicine." Margaret was silent for so long that the person asked if she was still on the line. "I am," she said finally. "But I think you called the wrong person. I just take care of animals. You revolutionized the way the world treats animals and elderly professionals. Your work impacts millions of lives. You are definitely the right person." When Amanda heard about the nomination, she cried with emotion. "Grandma, you're going to win the Nobel." "I don't know if I'll win, dear. And honestly, it doesn't matter. The prize I want, I've already won." "Which one?" "Seeing you happy. Seeing the girls fulfilled. Seeing the animals well cared for. Seeing veterinarians more humane. That is worth more than any medal." The Nobel ceremony would take place in December. Margaret, now 80 years old, agreed to go to Oslo accompanied by Amanda and her 3 colleagues. "Whatever the result," she said before boarding, "I want you to know everything we achieved was as a team. I may be receiving the recognition, but each of you deserves to be on that stage." The ceremony was broadcast live to the entire world. When they announced Margaret as the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, the audience rose in an ovation that lasted 5 minutes. Margaret climbed onto the stage with difficulty, but with dignity. Her speech was simple and profound. "Your Majesty's authorities, friends, I accept this award on behalf of all the animals who cannot speak for themselves, on behalf of all the veterinarians who chose compassion over profit, on behalf of all the elderly who were discarded by society but still have so much to offer." She paused, looking for Amanda and the 3 colleagues in the audience. "And I accept it on behalf of 4 young veterinarians who taught me that it is never too late to be forgiven, that it is never too late to start over, that it is never too late to be better." The speech ended with the phrase that would become historic: "If an old country girl like me can change the world, imagine what you can do. Don't waste your lives with pettiness. Be great. The animals need you." The final ovation lasted 10 minutes. Amanda and her colleagues cried in the audience, proud to be part of that incredible story. Back in the United States, Margaret was received as a national hero, but she insisted that the first stop be the sanctuary to visit her animals. "They miss me," she explained to the journalists accompanying her, "and I miss them too." The scene of Margaret hugging each animal at the sanctuary, with the Nobel medal on her chest, made the cover of magazines worldwide. That night, gathered in the backyard as always, the 5 women took stock of everything they had experienced. "Margaret," said Brittany, "when I think we almost lost the chance to know you because of our arrogance—" "Not almost," corrected Margaret. "You really did lose it." For a few hours, they were lost, but they had the humility to recognize their mistake and the courage to make it right. That is rare. "And what if we hadn't?" asked Ashley. "Then you would have wasted your lives, and I would have wasted the rest of mine. Fortunately, we chose the right path." Amanda approached her grandmother. "Grandma, can you make a promise?" "It depends on what it is." "Promise you'll live at least 10 more years. I still have so much to learn from you." Margaret laughed. "My dear, I won't promise because it doesn't depend only on me. But I promise this. As long as I have 1 day of life, I will use it to teach, and when I'm gone, you will continue teaching. My death won't be the end of anything. It will be the beginning of everything." Jennifer got emotional. "Don't talk about death, Margaret." "Why not? Death is part of life. What matters isn't how long we live, but what we do with the time we have." She looked at each of the young women. "You gave me the best years of my life. That's already more than many people get in a whole lifetime." In the following years, Margaret remained active, but at a more relaxed pace. She supervised the center and the sanctuary, but left the day-to-day operations to Amanda and her colleagues. She wrote 2 more books and created an online university that brought her teachings to veterinarians worldwide. The National Integrative Veterinary Medicine Program expanded to 23 states. Hundreds of veterinarians were trained in Margaret's methodology. Thousands of animals received more humane treatment. But Margaret's greatest legacy wasn't the numbers. It was the cultural transformation she had sparked. Veterinarians began to listen more and judge less. Older professionals were revalued. Animal medicine became more compassionate. End of story. Now tell me, what did you think of this story of overcoming and forgiveness? Do you believe it's never too late to start over? Leave your comment and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.